Alright, I have another video today, and this time I'm going to be looking at my Praetorian Imperial Guard for Warhammer 40k. These models, you would have seen some of them in the previous terrain video I did of the Foamcast 40k bunkers. The models themselves were part of a special limited release back around 97-98, and they were part of a big Warhammer World diorama and White Dwarf article battle report called The Massacre at Big Tooth River, where a group of Praetorians were deployed against an invading Orc Wa, and through bad intelligence and, messed up leadership, they were slaughtered. And it was, it's always been quite a popular battle, I understand. It's from a little bit before I started, which is one of the important parts of what I'm going to talk about. I originally wanted to get something like Praetorians when I started. I remember being really drawn to the Guard because of all the different pewter regiments and just wanting to have, a little bit of everything. But at the time I was a kid, couldn't afford pewter. I went with plastic catechins because they were just much cheaper, especially if you bought them used, which I did. And then I moved on to plastic Cadians because, again, back around 2003, I think when those came out, I mean, you could get 20 Cadians for about $40 Canadian. So, quite a bit better deal than the Cadians, the exact same Cadians are today, minus that that upgrade sprue, which somehow, really upped their value, apparently. But anyways, yeah, Praetorians were always one that I was interested in, and I just never thought I'd have any. Even as I grew older, had money in my pocket, I just still couldn't justify buying into these guys. They just cost too much money in the aftermarket when people were, very seriously hoarding them, trying to keep as many for themselves as they could, find as many as they could, and it just got worse and worse and worse. I mean, as I said, these came out around 97, 98, and they were just discontinued around 2000, let's say 4 latest. And even by then, the last 3 or 4 years of their existence, probably even more than that, probably like the last 5 or 6 years of their existence, they were essentially just made available through the old online bits shop. Essentially, you could order blisters of them, and that was why it was so expensive to continue. When they first came out, there was this special platoon box. It got you, I don't know, let's say 30 models and a couple of casualties, because back then they used to sell us, dead and dying Imperial Guard, among other factions. Anyways, yeah, these guys here were just hard to get because they had the limited run as a big box. And then they were just blisters, which were, if I remember correctly, the blister for 3 guardsmen was 10 or $12 when I started. And a heavy weapon it was pretty close to $20. So, I mean, by the time you bought a squad, you were probably going to spend about $60 at least. It was definitely more expensive than buying the standard pewters, which themselves came in boxes of 10 guardsmen, usually with a special and a heavy weapon. But a couple of years ago, a friend of mine contacted me and said he wanted to offload some Praetorians. And at the time, I had just had a second child be born, or possibly the child was about to be born. I forget exactly. It's been a couple of years, as I said. And I just said, I know I can't do it. It's really awesome that you thought of me, but I just can't afford it right now, as much as I would love to be able to grab these. And he said, no, don't worry. I want this to go to somebody that I know will enjoy them and appreciate them, and not just, I don't really care about making a bunch of money off them, is what he told me. And, after a couple of, are you sure? That I asked him, he said, yep. And I said, okay, well then, he told me the price, and I said, okay, that's something I actually can do right now. And I bought them. I got them a couple of weeks later in the mail, and yeah, here they are. This is just a portion of them. I have about 10 squads of them. And about half of them are stripped. These are the ones that I was able to salvage for for painting. The rest, when I was trying to touch them up, they had been varnished, and the type of varnish, for some reason, like, I just couldn't get any paint to really stick to it. They weren't like thickly painted or anything. It was just that I could not get the extra colors I wanted to latch on. So I gave them a big strip job, and I'll get back to them at some point here in the near future when I'm done my fantasy kick. So just looking at the models, one thing, if you aren't aware of these, but you feel they look sort of familiar, is that they're based off of the Mordian Iron Guard pewter regiment, with simply just here, a head swap. They had their heads cut off, and these pith helmets were sculpted on by, I believe, one of the Perry twins. And then that's kind of how they came to be. I'm guessing they were probably somebody's like personal army project at the studio, and then they just all just said, "Wow, that looks great. We should just like do a run of these." Because otherwise, I don't know where these came from. The only thing I think that's been specially done is the bugle characters. I use these guys as vox casters. I just thought, that would fit the bill. And for painting, I did want to keep their standard red coats, blue pants, red stripes on their pants. I darkened the pants a bit. I believe often you'll see the pants to be a much brighter blue. So I actually went with, I want to say it's Night Lord's blue. Yeah, Night Lord's blue sounds right. And then I went with white helmets versus some of the more tan or beige that often is seen. I gave them white gloves because I did want them to have sort of a ceremonial look. And just, I liked the extra pops of white because I had the white helmets, now the white gloves, and the white webbing and kits and all that. So that they had something that really popped out. The green on their cuffs, for my purposes, denotes that they're a light infantry company. And that means to me they're going to be using heavy weapons that are anti-tank capable. So I do have mainly rockets and las cannons. That's what I got. I did end up buying just a handful of heavy bolters I could swap in and out if I wanted to. But I decided, light infantry. I wanted these guys to be relying on themselves. I wanted them to be able to hold positions and not have to worry about calling in tanks. And so that's why they have the green little cuffs there. I just decided that would be a light infantry thing. Sort of a nod to the green jackets for the 95th Rifles there. Sharp, if you're aware of the series. If you're not, look up Sharp, Sharpe, and Sean Bean. You'll probably enjoy it if you haven't seen it yet. And the one last thing I did, because these guys are second edition, I decided that they needed a bit of that bright coloring you'd see in second edition, which is, in this case here, yellow barrels. It was really common in second edition to see like red guns and yellow guns, basically like really bright colored guns. I still decided to go with black guns and steel. I think in this case here, the steel, I went with the Grey Knight one. They sell just because it's got a bit of a blue to it, and I like that. But I did want the, like I said, the bright yellow, just for another pop color. A lot of my armies actually turn out red. I'm not really sure what happens, but I wind up with like Vostroyans, and now I have these guys, and I've done red for Skaven, and so on. Anyways, I wind up with a lot of red, so I wanted some stuff that would make them stand out, which was why I went with the white, the bright whites, the green, and the yellow. More than their red coats do. I just felt like they would blend into my Vostroyans if I ever teamed them up, which I do sometimes. That is the Crimerian. I forget. I had a number for it. The Crimerian, let's say first. My Cossacks and my British. And if you look here, the only thing that's actually A little bit weird about this whole setup is this banner. This is not my work. I just left it on because the guy I got it from, he himself bought it used, and it came from like an estate sale. And the person that sold it was selling it for a hobbyist who had passed, and this was his army. And that's where the paint, like I said, the paint was like this brand that I'm pretty sure was older and not as nice as more modern acrylics, which is why I had to do all that stripping. But he also did this, and even though I'm not a huge fan of it, I decided to leave it on just because this is somebody's army. This is something that they were probably very proud of, and I didn't want to just destroy every bit of work this person had done, so I left that on. I plan to buy another standard bearer at some point, just to have my own, but for now, he's fine. He'll do what I need him to do, and again, it just, I don't know, to me, it's nice to get used armies. You can get a really good deal, but when people put work into their armies and they leave them behind, I feel like there's always just a little part of me that just wants to, you know, not totally take away what they had done, leave some part to show this was their army. And that's what I did with this flag. And it's not like he did a bad job with it. It's got kind of this cool bend to it. It looks like it's billowing in the wind. I do like the positioning. It's just the whole Union Jack thing. It's a little bit too, you know, obvious, I guess. But overall pretty cool. I do like the effort he made, at least. And yeah, that's it. This is just a quick little look at some of my Praetorians. And if you like this, just keep checking back. I'm going to keep putting up videos. And I'm probably going to start doing some where I do more discussions than just showing off. Because I do like to show off what I have. But sometimes there's some things I'd like to, you know, share my thoughts on. And I suppose I can always do that with a slideshow of cool miniatures at the same time. So thanks for watching and have a great day.